Hi, welcome to ZoomEx Conversations. This is an effort to ensure that the voices of academicians, researchers, practitioners, educationists reach out to the fraternity. So we have with us Dr. Ranjini Krishnaswamy. She is the recipient of the National Award for Teachers Principals from the Government of India. In the academic arena, close to 4 decades, 25 years of which she has been a principal, her core competency is curriculum construction and development of school administration on and the teaching of English language. She was the principal of St. Gregorius High School and director principal of the Billabong High School or Billabong High International School, Thane. Currently, she is the director education for the Dosti group and is mentoring their educational projects. Dosti Foundation School, Silfata, their first school. We also have with us Mrs. Kalyani Chaudhuri. She is an experienced head with a demonstrated history of working in the education management industry, skilled in curriculum development and assessment, public speaking, and people skills, strong professional with MPhil and bachelor's degree in education. She has been in the education field since last 15 years, having taught in schools in Colombo and Hyderabad. She was the headmistress of Delhi School of Excellence, Hyderabad, and currently a principal with the Billabong High International School, Thane. So, welcome both Dr. Ranjini and Mrs. Kalyani. A pleasure having you all here for this session today. We'll start with a few questions. The lockdown has been a really difficult thing for all of us, and I think it has asked a lot from education and educationists. What I would like to know from both of you is to understand what has been that singular impact or that impact that you see that has had the pandemic has had on the people and in specific to the education per se.
Okay. Children particularly have been isolated. Education, I believe, and learning takes place in a social manner, and this total lack of social interaction has isolated children totally, and I will not be surprised if we are going to have a host of psychiatric and other mental issues coming up in the near future. Because schooling is not just about reading, writing, arithmetic, and accumulation of information. I believe children come to school not so much to learn, but to meet their friends, interact with teachers, and so on and so forth. So that, I believe, is the negative impact of the pandemic. And I'm sure Kalyani will agree with me when I say this.
Yeah, so I am very happy that you brought this first, saying that the social impact has been the biggest impact apart from the educational impact. So what other impact have you seen of the pandemic on the children who are going through this difficult phase of being socially isolated, specifically in terms of their education and their educational needs?
So when lockdown started, the educators were unequipped actually to handle the crisis in a manner that it was required. So first of all, we thought, awareness about why education should continue for children is very important. So we met with parents, we explained to them that this is something very different that we are going to do. Because until and unless every mind is prepared for what they are going to embrace, it's very difficult for people to understand the whys. Then came the how. So why we were doing it? We wanted children to remain engaged because they were, as ma'am said, that they were isolated. They had no company. So it was important that we bring them together again, create a classroom environment where they can, be themselves. It was important. I am not very sure how much learning or teaching in its true sense has happened in the last 1 year. But as schools and as educators, we have ensured that They come together as a class, they interact with each other, because that was the need of the hour.
Understood. So I totally agree with the fact that you are saying that most of these children got an opportunity to get to be with their friends socially, while learning may have had its own challenges and may be
Yes.
difficult to measure what actually may have happened during this period. But I think it was a start in a new direction for many, many things. So looking at the way the education has happened in the last few months, what would you say would be the learnings from the pandemic for children as well as for schools?
So the children have learned to connect better, and
Mhm.
so have the teachers. So I can see a lot of collaborative activities happening with the children as well as the teachers. And I would use the word connection here.
Mhm.
Connections have become stronger than before.
Oh,
Though
very
we were, on the other side of screens,
okay.
yet I feel that children craved for that time to be with their teachers,
Mhm.
to be with their friends. And
Okay.
that's what is, for me, is a huge outcome of the pandemic.
Okay.
That instead of dividing us or, keeping us apart, it has kind of brought us closer.
Okay. So what happened at your?
Okay. This is very interesting. I would add another dimension. I think it taught all of us how to embrace technology. Okay, I say this because I belong to a generation of migrants to the technological world. Now, the students are actually natives to that. So they were very happy. They knew. In fact, half the time when I didn't know, I had to go through a program and try to understand. But the surprise package here is the way in which the parents reacted. I would say that the parents realized what schools were going through, what their own children were going through, and I think they have understood the problems and the challenges that teachers face. And therefore, we found that, and they also realized what teachers go through when they're sitting with their kids for then, say 5 hours at a stretch. Because parents are not with them for 5 hours at a stretch. So they realized that, and they've become a little more empathetic. And when we asked for something, not money, but when we asked for other things, they were way out to hold our hand, because it brought the three people, the stakeholders, the parents and the students, all together on a common platform. So yes, I would agree with her to a limited extent on that connection component, but at the same time, while we were laughing and happy and all that, when we walked away from that screen, there was this sense of hollowness and emptiness. This was my personal feeling.
Right.
Yeah.
I totally agree with what you said in terms of a very important thing, that children being native to this and we being migrants to technology, actually I would say a whole generation of people have evolved.
Absolutely.
The senior citizens in our house have also actually had this significant opportunity to go ahead and embrace technology and to connect with people.
Absolutely.
While our focus today remains largely on understanding the impact, we see that the teachers had a huge impact. So I would like to understand from you, as to from your school perspective, as to how your teachers or what your experience specifically in terms of your teaching staff was, how they went through this journey, considering that they went through a lot of stress, lot of emotions. So how has it been for them?
Okay. The first thing, when we realized that the lockdown was here to stay and we were not likely to meet offline in a hurry, the first thing as someone who lays down policies for a school, I realized that every teacher had to go through this kind of a training program. And I said, okay, let me be the leader, let me start. So first thing I did was I registered myself for an online teaching learning program. I learned how to make PowerPoints, how to make questions, go to Google Forms, go to Google Meet and all kinds of things. And we learned how to accept and to make paper. So for me, it was a great learning experience and a learning opportunity. And what I took, say 5 hours to learn, my teachers took 1 hour to learn, because they kind of just learned. And they would help me. When I didn't know something, I would say, hey, look, I'm not very sure. They said, no, ma'am, don't worry, we'll help you. So I felt very thrilled. And I also felt a sense of humbling because I was able to learn. Okay, so it was very nice. So that was the first thing. So I became a learner in the true sense of the word. And my teachers, I found that They all just knew what to do. Even my pune knew what to do. You know, I was having a little problem with my cell phone, and I said, you know, this I'm not able to access. He said, ma'am, darna nahi, hum karke denge. He took my phone, tap, 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 and God knows what he did, and he made it work. So I felt very, very happy that yes, this is an opportunity where everyone is able to put out their skills out there in the workplace. Number 2, that was number 2. And number 3, we found that teachers, because maybe of their youth or, just their innate technological savviness, as it were, they were able to do their work well. Okay, so for them it was not at all difficult. I mean, I was very, very surprised. And my principal, she said, ma'am, don't worry, it's a no-brainer, we can do it immediately, just tell us what you want us to do. So I said, how are we going to meet the children? How are we going to get them together? She said, no problem. And I was absolutely dumbfounded when these young people all got together. They created this digital classroom, and I'm sure Kalyani will tell you that because she's so many years younger than I am. But they were able to get through, and the classes very smoothly they shifted to an online platform. And therefore, for us, for people like me who've been teaching for so many years, it was a truly humbling experience, and at the same time also very empowering. Yes. Right. I don't know if that answers your question, but yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So I do get the 3 messages that you tried to give in terms of actually the ease of implementation when it came from the teachers and things like that.
Yeah.
So it enabled it was more like an enabler than something that posed too many challenges. So,
no, it wasn't.
Right.
I agree with you.
So what has been your experience?
Actually, we had started to embrace technology a little earlier than this happened.
Mm-hmm.
So our teachers were set to go for these digital training programs in the month of March and April,
Mm-hmm.
so that we could start afresh in June.
Mm-hmm.
So that was already planned. So we
Okay.
had an edge there. We already had a trainer with us. So when lockdown struck, we all wanted to understand how easy we could make it for the parent,
Mm-hmm.
for the student, for the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And our management provided us with a trainer, a very good trainer. So we had trainings for about 3 weeks at ungodly hours because, everyone was trying to get adjusted to the new routine. With everyone being at home, with children being at home, with parents and extended family, it was tough time for teachers and parents. So we discussed the whole thing with the parents. Then gradually, when we had to reopen in June, we thought of advancing it. And we started our session from the 30th of April last year. And our teachers, it's a huge sacrifice for teachers. They sacrifice their summer vacation. Students sacrifice their summer vacation because we had to learn what we needed to do. So we underwent a training for 3 weeks, understood the nuances of technology. Then after the training, we still realize that not all teachers are made for technology. They will still face a lot of challenges because gadgets were a big challenge. Not every household had a laptop. Not every teacher could manage using the phone as her device, to transact the classroom. But all teachers came together. We formed a tech-savvy team with the younger teachers because they are a generation of, like ma'am said, they are natives.
Right.
So we thought, okay, let us depend on them to teach us. And we created a tech-savvy team, and we created small groups of teachers. So 4 teachers had one tech-savvy team member 24/7 for support.
Okay.
And the same group would facilitate the students also of that class.
Understood.
So these small groups helped each other learn.
Okay.
And then, as Bam said, it was important for me to understand the whole thing first. So I started attending these workshops and sessions online, and I first tested myself whether I could do it. And if I was successful in that, then I took it to the fraternity, teaching fraternity. Then my leadership team members learned it from me, and then they passed it on to the teachers. So it was done in a very organized manner, step by step, so that it reached the student and the parent, because the teacher was not only teaching the student, she was teaching the entire family that sat with the student.
Absolutely.
Right.
So the teachers actually had to go through a lot of preparation, mental and emotional, to face the whole family there.
Right.
Because the moment she went wrong, and it's normal for a teacher to make mistakes like any other person.
Very true.
So she became more conscious, and she had to put in a lot of effort before the class to ensure that she made fewer errors. So, and we saw it declining day by day.
Right.
So it was huge in terms of preparation,
Yeah.
and that took a toll on the teachers' well-being also. Because the initial 3 months were very tough for them. So emotionally, as much as possible, we tried to support them. I would say most of the families were extremely supportive.
Yes.
But we did notice that some teachers had issues, emotional issues. And then we started talking to them separately and tried to bring them out of it. And a very clear mandate was given that after 3:30 or 4 o'clock, it's the teacher's personal time. So no meetings will happen after that.
Understood. So you are saying that we had two things that you did. One was empowering the teachers by creating small groups which had someone to support and make the things possible for the teacher. The second part of it was to create a policy in place which enabled the teacher to have their me time with their family or for themselves, to ensure that their well-being is also taken care of. I think that's a wonderful way of looking and doing the whole thing. So I think that may have surely worked well. A very important thing, as you rightly said, during this whole period, teachers have been the people who have been judged the most actually.
Absolutely.
As you rightly put it, it's the family that learned, not just the child. So I do understand that's the whole reason, that the kind of apprehension, the kind of anxiety that they went through was also phenomenal, because suddenly being pushed into technology and being at the other end being judged for everything that you do and say. So that parents are what parents are. As you rightly said, it took them a while to really understand the teacher, and I think it made a lot more sense to see that they can be more understanding of each other and the empathy evolved. So I think that's very cool. Coming to one very important question, what do you see will be the road ahead for education as the post-pandemic thing happens? What will change for education from here on, specifically for schools and then subsequently for children?
See, change is what is going to remain constant in life. Now, this was a sea change. And the way we have adapted to this change has actually made us more resilient. So, education is going to evolve from here. Education is not going to be the same as it was before March 2020. We have all evolved, and I think all educators have understood the need to create hybrid learning or blended learning part of their pedagogy. So that is going to remain, and we must continue with that because we've seen the benefits. Though children were not in a physical classroom, they were not face to face with the teachers, yet there has been so much of learning because they connected with each other well. I think that's what we take ahead from the learning during the pandemic.
From what she says, one important question which I would like to ask is, what would be the difference if we are to say that we will be continuing this in terms of a digital classroom vis-a-vis a conventional classroom?
Okay. I do not believe that we can have a digital classroom alone. Okay. As Kalyani just said, hybrid learning has come to stay. I believe we are going to have this on a regular. Maybe we'll do 2 hours or 3 hours physically and maybe in a couple of hours online. Okay, that is, I think, come to stay. And in a way, it's a good thing because especially Saturday classes, extra classes, all that will work better when you do online. But what really I'm a little apprehensive about is, as I mentioned, I started by saying this isolation that children are facing. because man is a social animal. You need to meet people, you need to touch them, you need to hug them. I'm a great hugger, okay? I believe there's nothing in the world that can't be stopped by a touch. You know, just say, look, everything's going to be fine. Give them a nice. I think that's very important. And in the absence of physical touch, we are going to face a lot of problems. Perhaps, earlier we were talking about the social structure in India being what it is. You don't need to go to a counselor or a psychiatrist like you do in the West. I'm not so sure that will not start, because I was talking to a counselor some very early in the pandemic, maybe June, July, and I said, look, can you come and do a session for my parents so that they'll understand, it's important to do these sort of things. So she said to me, ma'am, believe it or not, I have no time. Back to back, I'm counseling people. So this need to want to talk to somebody, share this sense of isolation, of staying all alone in a house. For example, in most houses, either you have this emptiness syndrome where you have only older people staying, or you have a house where there are 20 people staying. And Bombay, we have this very peculiar thing of 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom flats where, that is, you're constantly so much in one another's faces, So that, as we were talking about this, either you're going to have a divorce or you're going to become more fond of each other.
Ma'am is very right. So when I spoke with children and I spoke with teachers, I realized that everyone wanted to express themselves. So what we did as a school, we created a no work talk time.
Yeah.
For students as well as for teachers. So there are staff meetings which are work related staff meetings, and there are meetings where we don't talk about work at all. So the same thing was then taken to, once the teachers experienced it, we took it to the children. So once a week we give them 45 minutes to 1 hour to just talk. So as a whole class group or maybe individually, they keep talking to the teachers.
Okay.
So that has actually helped them calm down.
Right.
And parents have, it started with a lot of criticism for the teacher.
Mm-hmm.
They were pinpointing the slightest of errors. And within 2 to 3 months' time, we started receiving appreciations from the parents.
Okay.
For what the teacher was doing, the way she was preparing, the way she was handling.
Right.
So then criticism turned into appreciation, and that was
Right.
within no time, I would say.
Right.
And probably this has been one of the most complaint-free years for the school. Because man knows what we handle. So, and teachers, I would give the credit to the teachers because they spent number of hours with
Truly, I agree with you.
with what they had to deliver.
Right. I think the way you said these small things make the larger impact in
Yes.
terms of just giving that me time is very, very important, or the talk time that we say is very
I
important,
think
because
that's a very nice thing.
the statistics say that 92% of our population in the last whole year went through loneliness. So yeah,
Very true.
Education is just not about the head, but we need something for our hearts, and that we require
Absolutely.
people for it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think it's been a phenomenal conversation which we have had with you right now, and it gave us a lot of understanding in terms of the issues that the schools have gone through, and a structured way in which probably you have tried to approach this. I think a lot more people can learn from this and take a lot of these things home or back to their schools and classrooms, I think. So a lot of policies that you said in terms of creating a small group which empowers the teachers, or to see that giving that me time once a week made it very impactful and effective.
I like that.
Yeah, so I think that
Particularly
these
very
are
nice.
great things which will surely help, and see that how teachers can look for their well-being and how children also can be supported with their social and emotional issues also. So great. So thank you very much for being here, Dr. Ranjini and Kalyani ma'am. It's been really a pleasure talking to both of you all, and it was wonderful to understand from your perspective. The things that you brought here today will surely help us in a long way to take it back to the academicians and educationists. Thank you.
Our pleasure.
Our pleasure.